science tools. For lab, for life.
You know, I really like doing these lab activities. I just don't see what I'll ever use this balance for in a real job.
It depends on what you do.
Did you hear that? What's that? Let's find out. Is someone watching us?
Yep, you triggered my surveillance camera, one of my favorite observation tools. Hello? If you want to see me, you gotta come over here.
It's a laptop. What are you, a rocket scientist or something?
Exactly. And I'm a mechanical engineer, university instructor, a pilot, astronomer. I've worked for NASA, and I'm also a mom.
Hi, Aunt Aurora. She's your aunt?
And a rocket scientist.
That balance over there is a tool just like the one I use all the time in my job. In fact, I'll run an observation tape from last week's fuel propellant test for you. 3, 2, 1. There are many different types of science tools. Tools that keep you safe, like this protective gear. Tools that help you measure, like the balance. And tools that help you observe, like the microscope or the lens of a camera. And information tools. Tools that calculate, store, and retrieve information, like the computer you're viewing me on. So what's today's experiment?
We want to find out how dirty water gets changed back to clean water again. Dad suggested we use his leftover coffee for our test.
We were thinking of adding some chemicals or boiling it to purify it, but then we just end up with hot coffee and chemicals.
So what are you going to do?
We're going to make a filter to clean it.
Before you begin, in lab or in life, there is always one thing to consider first.
What's that?
Safety.
Megan and Brandon put on their safety gear before they start to handle the experiment materials. Coffee, coffee grounds, sand, and cotton balls are part of the experiment. Megan's mom,
Hi, Mom.
will supervise them as they use some of the other materials they need, like carbon, alum, and lime.
I wonder, what other jobs use safety tools?
Safety tools. The dental hygienist wears safety glasses to make sure nothing gets in her eyes when she's cleaning your teeth. This welder is wearing a special kind of safety mask. It protects his eyes and his face from the bright lights and hot sparks. When a carpenter makes cabinets, he uses safety goggles to protect his eyes from the wood chips flying off the saw. At a wastewater treatment plant, water used in our kitchens and baths is recycled back into the river. Everyone who works here uses safety equipment.
We always put in our gloves to be safe so that whatever chemical or samples we are working with, we don't know what we get. We are working at a sewage treatment plant. We get all kinds of samples. So we want to make sure we're not splashing things over us. So we wear our gloves.
Some gloves are barriers for disease.
We typically use them to prevent the spread of bacteria and infection between patients.
Others are protection from heat. A fire extinguisher is a tool that is used to put out a fire. It should be on hand anywhere a fire can happen. Work, school, home, or the lab.
Professional demonstration only. Remember, fire should never be a part of a home or school experiment. Speaking of lab experiments, before Megan and Brandon change anything, they need to observe and measure what they have. Coffee. The pH tests measure a level of acid in a substance. The coffee liquid has an acid level of about 5.0 before the experiment. Now, we can't see the acid with our eyes, and although we could, we certainly don't want to taste the acid. But the pH tests give a visual representation of things beyond our sight.
Observation tools. One of our 5 senses, sight, plays such a big part in observation that many of the tools help us see better. A hand lens enlarges the image of an object. So does an insect magnifying box. This geologist is a scientist who works for a company that mines building materials. She uses a magnifier to take a closer look at the properties of these rocks. A compound microscope uses more than one lens to make smaller objects visible, things as small as a single cell in your body. When you go to the eye doctor, the optometrist uses a special microscope to look at your eyes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Monica Robinson, and I'm an optometrist. I use lab tools in my job every day. This is a very important tool in my job. This is called a slit lamp, and it gets its name because it uses a light source that is like a slit. It is a microscope, but instead of looking down, you're looking forward. And so we bring it across, have the patient put their chin in the chin rest, and we can examine the eye with a bright light and lots of magnification. And what we're looking for is to make sure that all the structures in the eye, like the iris and the pupil and the white part of the eye, are healthy.
Sometimes, to get a better view of something, you have to move it. You can use a probe. You can explore inside things, like this owl pellet, without touching it with your fingers. A dentist uses a probe to test your gums, to make sure they are healthy support for your teeth. To keep these fish healthy, they need a healthy environment. This aquarium keeper uses another lab tool, the test tube, to test the water quality. Removing a small amount of water and testing it in the test tube keeps the fish safe from the chemicals and lets the fish keeper know if it's time for a water change.
Back in the lab, Megan and Brandon pour 60 milliliters of coffee with some grounds into a big graduated cylinder. Then they measure out an equal amount of water, 60 milliliters, with another graduated cylinder and pour it all into a beaker. They're aerating the mixture. To aerate, that means to add air, the molecules that make up the air, into another material. Now it's time to use that balance and measure 1.2 grams. That's about a quarter teaspoon of lime, which is also known as calcium hydroxide, and about 2.4 grams of alum, also known as aluminum sulfate. The lime will help make the liquid less acidic. The alum makes the liquid materials more solid, coagulate. That will help when they filter the mixture. There's one more thing to measure: time, about 6 minutes for the particles to separate in the water.
Is measuring really that important?
Measurement is so important, it has its own set of tools.
Measurement tools. The balance that Megan and Brandon used measures how much an object weighs. A veterinarian technician uses a balance to see how much an animal weighs.
So she's weighing in at 9 pounds, 11 ounces. So that will be really helpful for us to know how much medication we would need to give her to make sure that we're not underdosing or overdosing her.
Droppers are used to measure small amounts of liquid and then let it out drop by drop.
An eyedropper is a tool I use daily so that we have just the right amount of drop going in so the patient does not get too much medication.
Mr. Davis is an electrician. He uses a digital multimeter to measure how much electricity or voltage is going to an outlet. To be safe, he always checks to make sure the electricity is off before he works on an outlet. Rulers, meter sticks, and tape measures are all tools that measure the length, width, and height of an object. Building contractors, carpenters, plumbers, and engineers use exact measurement tools, even new laser measuring tools, in everything they build. Architects that draw the plans for buildings often draw in a computer. There are measurement tools there too, as well as a whole other set of tools. Tools that store, retrieve, and calculate information. Information tools. The calculator can do simple and complex math on the measurements used in experiments, construction, or calculations about money. Cash registers used to be simple calculators, adding up amounts of money and calculating tax. Now, they read the price and keep track of how many of that item is left in the store. They even print a receipt for you. The computer does it all: store, retrieve, and calculate information. Scientists that do experiments rely on computers to record data, calculate results, store, and send information to other scientists around the world. Many of the things we do today would not be possible without computers.
Besides a rocket scientist, I'm a mechanical engineer. Computers are so much a part of what I do. I use them to do the calculations for making sure satellites get the power they need from the sun. While the lime and the alum are working, Megan and Brandon will work on their filter. They line the bottom of the cup with the carbon granules and add enough water to cover them. Meanwhile, Brandon fluffs out 2 cotton balls and then stuffs them into the small funnel and drops the carbon water over the cotton balls, making them completely black. They add a layer of clean sand over the cotton balls, using a dropper again to get the sand completely wet with clean water.
Will this work?
Using a dropper, Megan extracts the clear layer from the coffee mixture and releases it into the funnel.
It's clear.
But is it drinkable?
I'll test that.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna do a few more tests first. So, what have you learned?
There are many different types of science tools. Tools that keep you safe,
Tools that help you observe. Tools that help you measure.
and tools to store, retrieve, and calculate information.
Discover the tools used in alternative energy in my experiment. It's shown in the bonus section of this program.